the number one thing I tell people is you need to do more customer research. Because if that lead magnet isn't working, if your email sequence isn't working, if like you get them on a discovery call and you're not closing them, you don't know them well enough to actually solve their problem.
All right, everybody, here we are back again, and today we are talking to Jason from Shift Marketing Agency. Jason, thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me on, Zach. I'm excited for this.
Yeah, me too. And I think the most logical place to start off is I'd love to hear a little bit about you and your background, and specifically, I think people would love to know who are you, and then who is Sassy Jason, and is there a difference between the two?
um, Not as much of a difference as people think. So, as you said, my name's Jason. I have been in the marketing and branding world for a little over 20 years now. Kind of started in newspaper ad sales, learned graphic design at that position, ended up helping to launch a new student housing complex at a local university. From there, moved on to be like a social media manager at a community college. Ended up from there being like a communications assistant at an organization. Spent about 7.5 years as the head of marketing for a B2B manufacturing company, and then launched Shift to really focus on brand strategy, brand positioning, and design and all of that. And so for me, marketing, or really it's branding more that I focus on. Like branding is just part of who I am. Like I love to tell people my greatest passion, and I did this for 18 years, was mentoring young people to uncover their identity and that feeling of what is my purpose in life and how do I live that purpose out. Branding is doing that for businesses. And so that's the joy I have, is really working with entrepreneurs who have a great idea, have like a product that they want to bring to market. They're really like the people I work with, they know their stuff. They're like intellectual wise, like quality wise, they're top of their game, but they don't know how to accurately like talk about what they do. They don't know how to describe their business. They don't know how to explain it in a way that attracts the right people to them. And so basically that's what I do, and that's what Shift does, is help these organizations and these enterprise or these entrepreneurs understand, like, this is how I talk about my business. This is what makes my business unique. These are the touch points throughout my business that's going to help people really feel and understand this is why I should buy from you. Um, Sassy Jason is a alter ego, but really it's more me. Um, that came out of my LinkedIn content. So I've been creating content on LinkedIn for over 5 years now. It's actually how Shift got founded. I started writing on LinkedIn to find a new job. And I ended up having all these founders of various companies coming to me like, I can't afford to hire someone for marketing, but could your agency help me with this, that, or the other? And I'm sitting there like, I don't have an agency, but yes, I can help you. I will throw something together because I have the experience. I know what I'm doing. Um, but anyways, like one of the things I love doing on LinkedIn, because LinkedIn is rife with this, is just content that sounds good, but really doesn't actually help people. So that kind of like motivational, just keep going or just be yourself. Like I'm an entrepreneur myself. If someone told me, man, to get more clients, just be yourself, that's not how you get more clients. Like, let's just be honest with this. Like, being yourself is maybe one small component of branding, but it's not like how you build a business. And so, Sassy Jason was this like, I would get on LinkedIn and I'd make fun of that kind of crap. I'd call out bad marketing and sales and branding tactics. And there was a one of my followers in one of the posts, he just used the hashtag. He was like, hashtag Sassy Jason came out to play. And I was like, oh crap, I'm stealing that. And that's becoming a thing now. And so I didn't even create it. I was already being sassy and sarcastic in my post, but I didn't create Sassy Jason. Someone else started that hashtag, and I just jumped on it and was like, this is it. So now anytime you see my content that has hashtag Sassy Jason, You know, it's going to be some kind of sarcastic, like, this is dumb. If you think this, you're dumb. Here's the right way to do it kind of post.
Yeah, I love that, and I think it's very fitting that as someone who does a lot of consulting on branding, that you have crafted this entire kind of brand alter ego, but not exactly alter, for.
Right.
And I also think that's a really nice illustration of being able to leverage insights from your customers into, what is working, and kind of taking those signals and integrating those into your business, which is very
Right.
kind of topical for today. So I'd love to know. I think your kind of tagline, at least on LinkedIn, is attract the right customer to your business. Um, just tell us a little bit about what makes for the right customers, and what are the wrong customers, and yeah, what's the difference between those two?
Yeah. So this really comes down to a business by business. What's the word I'm looking for? Platforms in my head. It's a business by business kind of decision. Like it's going to depend on what you're bringing to the market, who you're trying to attract. So one of the things I do in our brand strategy sessions with clients when we're trying to figure out what makes a client ideal, what makes them the right client, and what makes them the wrong client is an exercise where we segment their existing customers by, if you look at who you currently have as clients, ask yourself, if my entire business was based on one customer, if I could have one customer 100 times over, which one do I want? And if you don't have that yet, that's something else that I'll talk about in a minute. But if you have a client that you're like, man, if I had 100 more like these, I would have bigger profit margins. I would love the work that I do. I wouldn't be micromanaged. They pay on time. It's those kind of things. Like if you have existing customers, ask yourself, is there one of these that I'd want 100 more of? If so, then you really do a deep dive into that customer and ask yourself those kind of questions. What makes them so great? Is it that they pay on time? Is it that like the project you're doing with them has a large profit margin? Is it that they're not micromanaging you? Like they trust you, like we all want those clients where it's like, hey, here's a $50,000 invoice and they're like paid. But then you've got those clients where it's like, here's a $2,000 invoice and they're like, can I make that payment over like 3 different months? And like they're late to pay and stuff. And you're like, this was a bad decision to take this client on. And so some of it is really mapping out for yourself, what do you want in an ideal customer? Like what is going to make you enjoy working with people? And let's be honest, some of it is just going to be there's a personality connection, like there are people who don't like sassy Jason. They don't like that I'm sarcastic. They don't like that I'll sit in workshops and they'll come up with an idea and I'm like, that's okay, but that's not really what you want to do. You think you do because someone told you that, but let's really dive into this. Like, if you don't like that sassy attitude, you're not going to want to work with me because that really does come out in all of our workshops and all of my documents that you get. Like, you're going to see that sarcastic, sassy personality come through. So, first step is nailing down and defining what is ideal for you. Um, Next would be, like I said, looking at your current customers and seeing who is ideal to really dive into like, how did they find you? Like what I found is that the clients that we work the best with that are my ideal customers end up coming through my LinkedIn content. Like they have consumed my content for so long that they know me, they trust me. When we jump on sales calls, it's a quick sale. Like it's more, let me just show you the process. This is what it's going to look like. Here's the proposal. They sign it. We're good to go. Like it's not a long, arduous like sales process. They tend to already be bought into it because they trust me. Those are ideal customers for me. Some of the customers that maybe come through Google that maybe searched for a brand agency and stumbled across us and like, okay, these people look good. Like we're going to find them. Now, I'm not saying, because I do have some clients that came through Google that I love, and I don't want them to hear this and be like, you're not ideal. But like, there is a difference where the people that have known me and known my content tend to be better clients because they like me And so they pay on time. They do those kind of things just because it's like, well, holy crap. One, I'm maybe a little bit afraid Sassy Jason's going to turn me into a post if I don't pay on time. Or if I do something that I'm not supposed to do, he might like use me as an example, and I don't want that. I've legit had customers tell me that, like, you're getting your invoice on time because I don't want to be a Sassy Jason post. Great. Like a little bit of fear of God in them. I love that. So one is just figure out what makes a customer ideal, and then just do a deep dive into, if you have an existing client that is ideal, get them on the phone, ask them those questions of like, how did you find me? Why did you choose us? Like what is the transformation we brought into your life? What did you like about working with us? What did you hate about working with us? Like all those insights really develop up into being able to attract more, of like wrapping your brand around them so you can attract more of those type of clients and less of the ones. I mean, let's be honest, we all run businesses here. Less of the clients that you take because you need the revenue, but you don't really, you're like, I'll take it, but I really wish I didn't have to, but
Right.
I got bills to pay, so I'm going to take, like, we want less of those clients and more of the ones that you're like, these are the ones I want, you know?
Yeah. So a few thoughts on that. One, I love the idea of kind of having the fear of God in the back of your your client's mind. Oh man, I don't want to get turned into a LinkedIn post. That's really funny and weirdly effective. It sounds like so.
It is. It is. Well, and so something else, you mentioned this before, you asked the question of like really understanding your ideal customer so that you can use those insights to build something that attracts them. Sassy Jason, like one of the reasons why I started creating that kind of sassy content on LinkedIn was I noticed a trend in the customers that I was attracting, that they knew they didn't know marketing and branding. They knew it was important. And they didn't just want a yes man. Like they didn't want someone to be like, you're paying me, so I'm just going to go ahead and, all right, I know that's not a good idea, but I also want to make sure I still get my invoice. So I'm just going to tell you what you want to hear. There's a lot of agencies out there like that that will just cave and be like, I know this is a crap idea. This is going to hurt your business, but you're paying me. So I'm just going to do whatever you say. We're not like that. And so one of the that kind of came out of some insights we got from clients. Like I'll sit on discovery calls with prospective clients and they're like, look, I want you to call me out on my shit. Like if I'm saying something that isn't true, if I'm trying to go down a path that you know is wrong, I need someone that's going to smack me upside the head and tell me that's wrong. We need to go this way. Like they want um that distinctiveness to be able to say, and that confidence to be able to say, look, even if you fire me as a vendor or strategist or consultant, like agency, whatever you want to call it, even if you fire me, I'm not going to build something that's not going to be effective for you. Like they're all searching for that. And so one of the ways that that comes out is I'm going to make fun of bad tactics to show them that I'm not afraid to call out bad tactics, which one is I'm not afraid to call out, but two, I know what I'm doing because I'm looking at what all the fluffluencers on LinkedIn are saying, like, just be yourself, just be authentic, just be vulnerable. And it's like anyone with half a business mind knows that building a business is more than just being authentic. Let's be honest, that's the entry level point to building a brand. That's not the, oh my gosh, be authentic and you have a brand. That's like, you can't pretend to be someone you're not. You can't pretend that your business is something it's not. You can try in the short term, but eventually the truth is going to come out and it's going to damage your reputation. People aren't going to want to work with you. So that advice is super, like, I call it the kindergarten level. When I see people putting that out, I'm like, you don't know branding, you don't know business. If that's the here's how to grow your business advice you're putting out, that's pretty shitty. Like it shows that you haven't really built a business, because anyone who has built a business knows there's a lot of processes you have to build. There's a lot you have to have in place to build a business and build a brand. So the clients that I attract want that. And so what I do is in my content, I use that sassy and sarcastic tone to convey, like to convey without specifically saying, I'm not a yes man. I will call you out on your crap. Like instead of having to say that, I show that through the personality that comes through all of our copy, all of our content, what we do in like podcasts like this and stuff. It conveys a message to them that they want to hear without actually having to say it.
Yeah, and I think that anyone listening to this knows that's kind of the ideal state for your content when you really understand your customer at a deep level and you're able to kind of imbue your content with those signals, that kind of personality that's really going to resonate with them. And so what you're describing, that's kind of the ideal end state for a business where it's like, look, I know my customer. I'm going to take what I know about my customer and I'm going to use that to fuel my content engine. And then I'm creating this gigantic surface area for people to connect with me, right? So instead of just reading my homepage, oh yeah, this is what we do or whatever, they're getting, little bite-sized doses every day on LinkedIn, right? And they're saying, I really like this guy, or I really like this brand, whatever the case may be. And through that kind of surface area and a deep understanding of the customer, you end up in, demo calls with folks who are like, yep, I already know who you are. I know what you do. I love what I see. Where do I sign? Essentially. And so
Right.
that's the ideal end state. What I'd like to learn a little bit more about from you is what is your process of understanding your client's customer? So when you sit down with a client and they say, look, you're the right guy for me. I want a killer brand. Um, Here are my customers. What do you then do? Do you get on calls with their customers? Do you go into their kind of internal research about what their customers are like? And tell me what are you looking for? Like, what are the
Yeah.
key pieces of information about their customer that you need to know to help them build an incredible brand?
Yeah. So we kind of have a multi-phase process here. First thing we do, with every project, we have one workshop where we're dealing just with their customers. And so what this looks like is the first step we do is define what is an ideal customer. So let's look at the clients you have already. If you have them, if you don't, like, let's just come up with some criteria of what makes a customer ideal for you. Who are you trying to go after? Do you have someone in your network that represents an ideal customer that we can kind of pull from? That's the key, because really when it comes to branding and marketing and content and all that, you want to target it all to the ideal customer. So first step is, what is ideal? Do you have an existing client who is ideal, or do you have, like, an ideal customer for me is Nike. All right, well, if you're a solopreneur, it's probably not, but like, let's use that as an example. It's Nike. Okay, great. We have an idea of what an ideal customer looks like. The next step we do is, I like to pull from their insights that they already have on their ideal customers, because and typically when we do these exercises, we have leaders and members of the business from throughout all departments. So I like to have C-suite, marketing, sales, customer support, product, even sometimes finance, like the people that are sending the invoices and all that kind of stuff, like a wide range of people within the room, because every different department has a different understanding of the ideal customers. Like what the junior salesman is who's actually having the calls with someone, they have a different understanding of the ideal customers than the CEO who thinks, oh, my ideal customers are like this. Now, if you are a solopreneur or entrepreneur and your team is like 1 to 2 people, you are it. So like it's whoever has interaction with those ideal customers, we get them into a workshop together and we're diving through a few things like, okay, if client XYZ is your ideal customer, talk to me about trends that you see among all the clients that you would consider ideal. What are their demographics? Are, like, how old are they? Are they primarily male or female? Where are they located? What job title? Like all those kind of basic stuff. Like that's surface level. You need it for ad targeting. Like if you're doing ads on LinkedIn or Facebook or wherever, you don't get to target by like, oh, they have this primary problem in their company. You have to know the demographics. So we kind of start there. What's the easy stuff that we can get out of the way? Then we look at some of the psychographic information, like what are they interested in? What are their challenges? What's kind of their day-to-day look like? And what's that main struggle that they struggle with? Um, because every ideal customer has a challenge or a problem, which is why they would buy your solution. So we really spend a lot of time diving into what is that problem? How does it impact them? How does it make them feel? And like what are the ways that they normally go about trying to solve it? So what I've seen 9 times out of 10 is before a customer is starting to search for a vendor for a solution, I'm willing to pay for a platform, willing to pay for a consultant or a service. A lot of times they try to DIY it. And so where are they looking for that kind of information? What's their go-to? Are they going to a network that they're in, like a Slack channel, or they look on LinkedIn? Are they doing a Google search? Like, where are they trying to find solutions for all of this? Then we spend some time figuring out what's their greatest fear. And a lot of people stop at the surface level stuff, like, well, their greatest fear is they're not going to be able to do their job well. Okay, like I think everyone could say that. Like, let's dig a little deeper. So my favorite question to ask when I do all this is, why does that matter? If they're afraid of not doing a good job, why does that matter? Let's get down to the core root of what is this the really the root of this problem. So we do a lot of that. It's mining what they already know. Before we do the workshop, I have them upload any like buyer personas they have or any information that documents they already have so I can review it. So we spend about 2 hours working through their insights that they have on their ideal clients. And we go through a basic customer journey map. What triggers them to understand they have a problem? What gets them to start looking for a solution? What gets them to start considering a solution? What are alternatives in the marketplace? So even more than direct competitors, who are indirect competitors and who are replacement competitors, people that like they solve the similar problem, they just do it in a completely different way. So for instance, you could hire a brand strategist or you could hire a business coach. We come at it from two different standpoints, but a business coach is a replacement competitor of mine. So thinking through that kind of stuff, who are they actually looking at? What are objections that kind of come up? Like one thing that I hear a lot from people is like, well, I just don't know if branding is actually provides real value. And it's like, well, that's because you think branding is logos, fonts, and colors. Of course, that doesn't provide real value. That's not going to make you money. So like understanding what are those objections. And then we look at like, what is the experience they need to have to go from, I don't know who you are to this is the best company that ever existed in my life. And I'm going to go tell everyone about it. Like, what is the steps that get them down to that place? So we map all that out. From there, then I have them pick some of the current clients they have who are ideal, and I do interviews with them. And really, what I'm looking for here, it's a little bit of market research, but I'm trying to validate the insights that the company already had about their clients. Because let's be honest, we make a lot of assumptions. We think, oh man, they're going to love this, or this is the struggle they have. And I get on the phone and they're like, I don't care about that at all. This is the real problem I had, And so it's more of and what I found, the reason I do it this way is talk to the company first and then talk to the clients is I need my clients to feel like I've heard them and that I'm not like, you guys don't know your shit. I'm just going to come in and talk directly to your customers. I need them to feel like we've shared with you everything we know before I can come in and say, okay, I talked to your customers. They said this. It's different than what you said. So we're going to go with what they said because they're the ones we're trying to attract. It's this idea of like, if I feel heard, then I'm willing to take the ouch, that hurts that they said that and we've been wrong. So I do an interview with their ideal customers. I'm trying to validate that, but then I'm also looking at, um, I always tell my clients, this is market research for you. So what else do you want me to discover from them? How is your onboarding process? Is the pricing well? Like I always ask, like, what did they do really well for you and what do they suck at? Like, what would you say, man, if they need to improve this and they need to improve this quickly? Because I found like a lot of clients aren't necessarily going to come to you and be like, listen, your onboarding process sucked. They just kind of internalize it. And so it's hard sometimes for a client, even if they like you, there's ways to improve, but they maybe not like want to make things awkward and be like, yeah, that sucked. You guys need to improve that. So, but telling it to a third party is a lot easier because then I take those insights. And a lot of times, let me kind of give you an example of um, one of the interviews we did for a client of ours. We talked to one of their ideal customers, and basically what he said was that the owner of the company was the one doing the sales call, and he said after an hour of sitting on a call, I had no clue how this company could actually help the business. The only reason we went with them was the owner of that company and the owner of the company I work for know each other, and the owner of my company, my boss, said we're going with them. So it's like if because he even said if I would have made the choice, we would not have gone with them because I didn't understand what they did. Now, when I went and talked to my boss and said, how are they going to help us? He listed out the three ways, and I was like, holy crap, this is brilliant. Why didn't he just say that instead of getting into the technical nitty gritty? So understanding that, like that insight from their client, I went back to my client and said, look, this is what we're hearing in the sales process. So we need to tweak your sales process so more people want to buy from you because they're not understanding what you're saying. You're talking at like this level and they're at this level. And yes, there might be some people in their company that understand it at this level. And these are the ones who might be the user of your platform, but these are the buyers. And there's a disconnect between what you're saying and what they need to hear. So that's kind of how, so we do all that. We take those insights because anytime we do a interview with a client, I usually end up coming out with 5 or 6 different like major insights for them across marketing, sales, operations, even just understanding their ideal clients. And then we go back and we use that information. I come back to the client, I share it with them and say, okay, based on this, here's what I'm recommending we do for your brand. Like, this is what's going to attract them. So we're going to spend time revamping your onboarding process, or we're going to really dive into your sales process. And, you're going to show me your pitch deck so I can look through it and be like, holy crap, I don't even understand it. I'm trying to understand it, like that's kind of how we dig in to their ideal customers.
Yeah, and I think you drew something out there, which is, I tend to say that the customer is the ultimate source of truth. That's
Yeah.
true in ways, not in others. But what I mean here is when you talk to that customer and they tell you, I had no idea what this thing did after an hour on a sales call, it basically invalidates so much of what you have going on internally, where everyone's kind of sitting around and saying, yeah, we really understand our customer, we have our product
Yeah.
being all dialed in. That's great that you think that. But when I go and talk to this person who has no idea what you do after 60 minutes, you have a problem, right? And so
Right.
that's what I mean by like the customer is kind of the ultimate, like, it's the ultimate test of, hey, do you really know your stuff? Are you really dialed in when it comes to how you communicate your value, what your product does, how it can help your customer, or not, right? And in that case,
Well,
it's
and
like they were on the or not side of things.
yeah. Well, and to give you another example on more maybe the positive side, um, about 2, 3 years ago, we worked with a client. They're an insurance billing company, trying to break into kind of a new market. They had 3 clients that were that kind of. They were working with ABA clinics, which are clinics that work with children with autism. And basically, they come in, handle all the insurance so that the clinic gets their money and gets profit basically. So they had 3 clients in that sphere. They were trying to transition into that sphere, like they wanted all their clients to be ABA clinics. And so one of the things that when we jumped on a call with their ideal customers, what we found was that there came a point in the process where it cost about $100,000 in commission for them to pay our client to get their money for them. So in their minds, now, I mean, I'm a business owner. I think this too. I could hire someone internally for 80,000 and save $20,000 a year. Like at some point, it becomes cheaper to hire internally than to keep working with you. And that's what every single customer we interviewed said. The cost gets too high, it's cheaper to hire internally. And that was one of the problems they were facing because they had one of their biggest clients in this that was an ABA clinic was starting to churn. And they were like, well, we don't know if we're going to re-sign the contract. We're looking at some other avenues. And so like, we need to fix this. So what we found out as we kind of were talking with them, doing some of their website stuff and all this and building the brands, we found that their clients assumed that there was one person working on their account, one person that was handling all of their billing, all their paperwork, like submitting everything for them. And if you think that there's one person for $100,000, yeah, you could pay someone $80,000 and do it internally. What we found out is that each client actually has 5 people on their team. And I was like, that is nowhere on your website. That's nowhere in your onboarding process. Like you're not explaining to them that they've got 5 people working on their case for $100,000. Try replacing 5 people for $100,000 a year, hiring internally. That's impossible. I was like, so one small thing you can do is on your website, on the like pricing page or however we structured it, including in there, you get 5 people working on your team. That right there. And then what we did is we said in the onboarding packet, just doing like a picture and a quick bio of the people working on your team. It seems fluffy, but what it's doing is it's reiterating in the back of their minds, I have 5 people working on my team. So when they do get to the place where all of a sudden they're making enough money where you're charging $100,000 a year, they're not thinking, oh, it's cheaper if I do this internally. They're thinking, there's no way I could hire 5 people for 100,000. It's cheaper for me to stay with them. It's a minor tweak, but it came out of like an interview with their ideal customers. And so that's kind of the little things of how you really build a brand strategy and those touch points throughout sales, marketing, and operations that are going to delight customers and keep them when you understand this is something a client says, this is something I'm seeing that's an issue. How do we backtrack and address that issue before it even becomes an issue? So once it becomes an issue, they're already like, it doesn't matter because I know I've got 5 people on my team and I can't replace 5 people for $100,000. Like it took an objection and jumped over it. And that's what client insights really allow your business to do.
Yeah, that's really well said. I tend to say that customer insights are kind of like the cheat codes to your business, where
100%.
you're going to kind of the end and saying, tell me all things that don't make sense. Tell me all the objections you have. Tell me how you perceive our brand, how you understand our product or don't. And then you get to take all that information and, like you said, kind of work backwards and say, how do we essentially address those concerns, tighten up our positioning, tighten up our messaging, and propagate that throughout not just our content, but like you said, our sales process, our operations.
Yeah.
Disseminating that information internally, and actually, I'd love to hear you just briefly talk about this, is once you have those insights, it's actually really important that you get those distributed throughout the organization, right? Because what I'm hearing from you is a lot of times a business thinks they have an understanding of a customer. There's a big gap between their understanding and the actual customer. But even within the business itself, sales might have a different understanding of the customer from marketing, from the CEO,
Right.
from the ops folks. So do you have any process, I guess, once you go and get those customer insights? Do you come back and just pound the table and say, this, this is who your customer is. You need to get with the program, or maybe it's a little more nuanced than that. I don't know.
It's a little more nuanced. It's kind of that way. I mean, I'm Sassy Jason, so that's my go-to. But there's a few things. It's one of the reasons why when we do these workshops with our clients, we have leaders from every department in there, is because what we're doing is we're figuring out these insights together. They're reviewing the documents together. We get on a call after all the insights are gathered, and I'm saying, okay, here's your new customer persona. Here's the new customer journey map. Here's what I like to call your customer DNA. So, and I don't know if anyone else does this. I'd like to say I'm the only one that does, because it's something that I kind of like did for ourselves. And I was like, this is something I should do for all my clients, is the 3 to 5 key attributes of your ideal clients that are true for all of them. So, I mean, I think we've all seen a buyer persona document, and let's be honest, there's a lot of times there's so much information on there that's like, how do I take this and turn it into content? How do I remember all of this and like make it usable? And so one of the things we do now is we provide customer DNA. So these are the 3 to 5 key attributes that are easy to remember, that actually matter. So like if my buyer persona says my ideal customers are, VPs of sales in their 40s at this size company and they struggle with this, that doesn't really give me direction on like, what do I need to create content around? But if I tell you that my ideal customers are founders or CEOs of companies that have a successful product, but they're somehow stagnating, or they're in transition, they've got new leadership, they're trying to enter a new market, they don't really have a marketing team, but they understand that marketing and branding is what's going to take them to that next level. That's our customer DNA. Like, I know that if that defines you, you're more than likely an ideal customer. And that's what I keep in mind when I create content and all this stuff. So one, all the department leaders are in the workshops. They're going through the documents when we kind of run through it, and here's how you use all this. Here's your new customer persona document. Give this to all of your sales team. Give this to all of your marketing. So we train the leadership team on these are your new customers. And then really where it really sinks in though is when we come in and say, because of this, this is the new play now. Because of this, this is what you need to tweak in your sales process. Because of this, this is what needs to change in marketing. You need to stop doing Google ads because they're not helping you, and you need to start doing this. Or like one client we're working with, we found that all of her customers say, your writing is great, but when I talk to you in person, there is just a passion and a drive that comes through you that we don't see in your written content. And I was like, you need to do video. I know written content is faster and easier to do, but you need to do video, because your ideal customers say when they hear you speak, they want to work with you. Get on video. All your content needs to be video. Like, it's those kind of insights where like, yeah, that insight is great, but where a lot of people struggle is, what does that mean for changing? So we do that. We give them access to those documents. We tell them, like, some companies are bigger, smaller, depending on like how their IT is structured and stuff. Some of it is, put the document in a place where everyone can access it so they can refer to it. We're actually starting to look into, for our clients, creating their own GPT, where we could input that data so marketing could go in and be like, would this type of campaign work for my ideal customers? And it would give them suggestions on like, no, but you might tweak it like this. So it's going to have my understanding of branding plus their strategy document put together. It's almost like they get their own Sassy Jason working with them full time. Like, those are the kind of ways. Now that's forthcoming, but we even do, for some clients, we've like developed almost like a brand guidelines on a website that their whole team, like an internal site that their team could go into, and it tells them this is the info, like this is the insights on your ideal customers, and now here's like five things that that means for marketing. Here's five things that means for sales and stuff like that. And so it really depends on the size of the company. Now, if it's a solopreneur or like an entrepreneur and it's like three people on their team, well, the documents and the direction tend to be enough. They're not like, well, I've got 1,000 people I need to train on this. For larger companies, we have gone in and trained their entire teams on, okay, this is who your customers are now. This is what this means in the emails that you send. This means you should really focus on this, that, and the other. So it depends on the company, but those are just some of the ways that we really get that information out there and make it something that's not like, great, I got a new customer persona that's going to sit in my filing cabinet. I'm not going to use, and I'm just going to keep doing what I've always done because there's no consequences and there's no direction on like, how do I change this? You know, so we teach them how to use it and what does that mean for their business.
Yeah, and that's something I hear time and time again from everyone from, marketers to market researchers. The deliverables that you produce is like the report itself is almost the least important part of your deliverables.
Yeah.
It's answering the so what. It's
Yes.
cool. You found out all this stuff. So what? What can I do with it? How do I tie this to activities in my marketing department? How do I tie this to revenue that it's going to generate for my business, right? Those are kind of like the money questions that you really need to ask. And like, that's how those insights become really actionable and super valuable. I know we're coming up on time here, so I have two quick rapid fire questions for you. And then
all right.
wrap, if that sounds good. So number one, I usually ask, what is your spiciest take? But for you, I'm going to ask, what is your sassiest take on either marketing or specifically when it comes to understanding customers? Do you have a kind of hot or sassy take on either of those?
Most marketers, most entrepreneurs, most CEOs don't know their customers. Like, and I think it's a mix of one, just not knowing how to research customers, but two, I think it's also this idea of like in a lot of businesses, the focus is we need revenue today. And so they skip over the foundational pieces that allow them to create revenue in the long term. And so I see this a lot in entrepreneurs where it's like, well, I don't need a brand strategy right now. I just need to get product market fit. I just need to test stuff. And I'm like, if you actually knew your ideal customers, if we did some brand strategy first, you would get product market fit faster because you know what's important to the clients you're trying to go after. So you can actually create an offer. And that's, I guess maybe this is, I have a lot of hot takes. So you're going to get all of it. It's a fire hose. Do not start with an offer. This is, I think, the biggest thing people do is they like come up with, this is the service I'm going to bring to the market. And now I need to like backtrack and like I try to sell it and no one wants it. So now I try to backtrack and do customer research. Do customer research first to help you develop the offer. It will be an offer that has much more better like product market fit and faster. You won't have to spend like hundreds of thousands of dollars and months trying to test. Like, I'm going to put up a landing page and I'm going to tweak the copy and say, you don't need to do that if you know your ideal customers. You still need to, you still should, but you don't have to like go through 20 different iterations of it and spend years trying to figure out what's the right message when you know your ideal customers. Like, and I say it this way, if you know your ideal customers to the level that you should, you will naturally know how to talk about your business and your product. It'll almost be like you put on the hat of your ideal customers, you're walking in their shoes and you're saying, it's 100% obvious to me that this is what we need to talk about because I know them so well that I'm thinking like them. If you can get to that point, you don't need to test 100 different messages to see which one works or which one doesn't. And with that, let's be honest, if you're selling a $100,000 package, you're not going to sell quickly enough to test something. Like if you do a month of putting a landing page out there and testing, that's not long enough to test if that actually works, because a sales cycle for a $100,000 product is much different than selling a $299 course on LinkedIn. Like it's a different sales process. And so this idea of, well, I'm just going to build a product or an offer and then try to find people to buy it is ass backwards to me. Know who you're trying to reach, build an offer that they're like, holy crap, this is the best thing I've ever seen. It makes it easier to market and sell that product. 100%.
Amazingly well said. You're on a heater there.
I was.
Last one before, and then I'll
Yeah.
just ask, where folks can find you. Do you have any advice for marketers or businesses in general who want to be more customer centric? I mean, that might tie into your previous answer, which was just, hey, take the time to really understand your customer. But is there anything in addition that you would add on there?
The biggest thing I would say is learn basic psychology. I think this is where most marketers fail, I guess is the word I want to use, or are lacking, is what I'm seeing now. A lot of marketers that are coming through college or have been working at larger companies and stuff like that, they're trained on tactics, but they're not trained to understand how the human brain actually works. And so if you can understand basic human psychology, you can market and sell almost anything. Like I've done some posts this week and some more that are coming out next week on LinkedIn and my email newsletter about the focus has really been on getting past that reptilian brain of ours. Like, for, I don't know how much your audience knows, but like your reptilian brain is like the bouncer of your brain. It judges every single interaction that you have, everything you see, feel, touch, taste, hear. It puts a judgment on it and it categorizes it to say good or bad, friend or foe. Is this an opportunity? Is this a threat? Like, what is this? And then it delves deeper into like, is this a shoe or is this a running shoe? Is this a accounting software or is this, like it categorizes everything subconsciously so that it doesn't use the resources of the part of your brain for deeper level thinking. So if you are coming to the market trying to do deeper level thinking first without connecting to that reptilian brain and getting past that, you are either being marked as a threat in way of like, this is going to take too much brain comprehension, which is going to take too much energy from the body. So we're just gonna push to the side. We're not even gonna let this pass the brain. Or they look at it and say, not relevant, ignore. And that's the worst place to be as a business, for that reptilian brain to say, this is a threat, don't let it deeper into the brain, or this isn't even worth our time, ignore it. Most marketing falls in those two categories. People either ignore it because it's like look at outbound emails. I probably get 100 cold emails a day. Most of them go to junk mail now, thankfully. But it's all stuff that it's like they ultra personalize it. Jason, we saw that you went to this college. We saw that we love your content on LinkedIn. This is so great. Awesome. I hear that all the time. Not making you stand out. And then it's this long drivel of like, we have, like, someone sent me something for like, this is a platform for IT companies. And I'm like, I'm not an IT company. I don't care how many times you follow up with me on that. I don't care what your sequence is and how often you're going to call me or you're going to send me 10 emails. And by the 10th email, I should book a call with you. It's not relevant. It gets ignored. And I think what happens is so many marketers and entrepreneurs have fallen into this trap of like, what are the tactics? What's the sequence? How many times? What are the metrics and all this stuff that they forget? We're marketing to other humans. And it's almost like they forget how they themselves buy. Like I'll sit in calls with entrepreneurs and they're like, well, this is like our marketing plan is we're going to send like 10 cold emails. We're going to do this and that and the other. And I sit there and I'm like, this is actually shit. But I'll look at them and say, all right, would you ever buy a product? Has it ever worked on you getting you to buy something? Well, no, I don't buy stuff from cold email. Then why the hell are you doing it through your business? Do you understand? Like, take a step back and ask yourself, would I buy using these tactics? Would I read that content? Would I open that email? Would I look at that ad? Would I, like, if you're doing TV commercials, would I stand up and go watch or go get snacks instead of actually watching your commercial? Like, asking yourself, one, would I open it? Now, obviously, you're not your ideal customer, so there's a little bit of nuance there, but I think ultimately, when you're looking at what should you be doing, if you're not going to open cold emails, like for me, Shift doesn't do cold emails. I'm sure it works for some companies. I'm not saying it doesn't, but I know me. If you send me a cold email, there's a good chance that I just mark you off as like, you don't know me, you don't know my crap, you're just after my money, you're not a solution for me anymore, even if I'm your ideal customer, because it was the wrong approach. And so understanding how you buy, understand how your ideal customers buy, and understand basic human psychology. If you know those three things, you will create an awesome marketing experience. And the key here is, and this is where most leadership doesn't like me saying this, but you can't always measure those kind of campaigns. You can't measure, what is it like? I look at even just the stuff that we do at Shift. Was it the LinkedIn content that got someone to book a call with me? Was it the email? Was it that they saw me on a podcast? Was it that they downloaded one of our resources on our website? Like, was it that someone referred them to me? Like, what was that mix? Some of that stuff, there's no way to actually tell. But all of that stuff is stuff that delights my ideal customer. So whether or not I can measure the effectiveness of it, I still do it because it helps them to trust me and buy from me more. And so moving away from 100% data driven marketing to, yes, we're going to look at the data. That you have to look at the data, what's working and not working. But at some level, you just have to know basic human psychology and trust your gut. If you know your ideal customers well enough, you can say, I don't have data that backs this, but I know my ideal customers are going to love this. So we're going to put the money into it. So we give them a better experience. That was a longer answer than you were looking for, but that's kind of my take on what you like, how that should be operating or working.
No, that was amazing. And, really it's boiling down to understanding your customer well enough to know how and where and when to show up for them.
Right.
Your point is very well taken, which is a lot of the quote unquote, best practices in marketing or the tactics that you have to do, the email sequence is this long, taking a step back and saying like, would this work on me? Like, does this have any application to the customer that I ideally know really well? Nothing about my customer tells me that they're going to click on XYZ over here. So, I think it's
Well,
just an amazing way to draw that out.
I was going to say, if you've got time, I've got one more example that kind of
Yeah.
nails this home. So
Yeah.
we worked with a company called Harmonize. They come into like manufacturing construction companies that are still being founder led and driven or CEO led and driven, and basically build out the processes that allow them to kind of step out of the day-to-day operations. And one of the things we found as we did customer research on them and dove into their ideal customers was that most of the customers that they work with have worked with some kind of consultancy in the past that didn't produce results. They paid a lot of money for something and got some kind of fluffy strategy that they're like, this didn't change my business at all. And they were having problems themselves where they had a 6-month long sales process and still weren't able to close customers. Like customers would hear what they have to say and be like, yeah, I need to think about this. I'm not quite sure if this is really good for my business and whatnot. And so we were kind of going against two objections here. Consultancy is fluff. And I need to think about it because I don't know if this is right for me. Not a place you want to be in with your business. So as we dove into this and we looked at their sales process, I said, okay, What your ideal customers need to see before they drop $30,000 with you, which is an astronomical number for like family run companies like that, that's not necessarily a full salary for someone, but it might be a salary for like a janitor, like a low level, like we're not going to pay you a lot. Still 30,000 wouldn't be a lot, but there's a lot of other things they could use that money for, and or just profit for themselves. They want to buy a new house, a new car, whatever. So I'm like, we need to make this something that they see the value in it before they give you the money. So one of the tactics, or one of the things that we told them to do, was instead of doing a discovery call, you're going to do a 1 hour strategy session, is what your discovery call is going to be. And you're going to try to identify one or two key problems that they're facing. And at the end of the call, you're going to send them a short report. Like, this isn't a 10-page document. This is just like a 1 to 2 page. Here's one of the main issues in your company. And here are like 2 or 3 things you could implement to solve that problem. We're not going to give them the full, like, oh, you're going to talk to we're not going to give them the how to. We're going to tell them this will help solve your problem if you do X, Y, and Z. With that, then they send their proposal. If you want help with this, this is our program. This is how we help. Their sales cycle went from 6 months down to 2 weeks because their ideal customers got tactical advice and a solution from them for free. Now, they didn't implement it for them. They didn't give them here's a how-to guide to make it happen. They just said, here's the problem. Here's how you need to solve it. You can solve it yourself if you want, 100%. But we know you work 12 hours a day and you don't have the time or the knowledge to do this, because if you did have the time or knowledge to do it, you would have already done it. Like human psychology. If you would have known what to do and had the time to do it, you would have done it already. Your business would be fine. You don't. We're going to tell you, here are the steps. And then we're going to give you, when you're ready to do it, here's how we help. Every client they've done that with has signed a contract. That is understanding your ideal customers and looking and saying, like, the problem isn't a marketing problem, though there was lots of marketing stuff advice I gave them too. It's not necessarily a marketing thing. It's there's a core issue in their mind that you're not addressing. And there's a way to address it. Now, I use this example in my sales process when I'm talking with a company, like, hey, this is what we did. It's one of the case studies I use. But I also tell them, this isn't the solution for you. What I'm going to come to you with is not, hey, let's just implement what we did for Harmonize because it worked for Harmonize, so it's going to work for everyone. That's not customer-driven strategy. Like, I don't care what people say on LinkedIn. Like, here's the 5 steps I turn to turn this client around, and you should do the exact same thing. Take my strategy, steal it, do this. It's going to work for your business. It doesn't. Strategy is a very intimate, very personal, very customized thing per the company, the customer, and the position you hold in the market. And so taking that customer data and really understanding, if my customer is struggling to say, I need something tactical before I even consider giving you money, how do we do that earlier on in the process so they get what they need from us? So when it does come time to buy, they're just like, take my money. I'm ready to work with you. That's how all this kind of comes together. But it starts with, you have to know your ideal customers first. No tactic, no strategy, no marketing hack is going to work. No email sequence, no lead magnet, none of that stuff, how many podcasts you're on or the content you create, none of that stuff's going to work if you don't know your ideal customers. That is I'm a brand strategist. It's very easy for me to say brand strategy is the foundation for any company. It's really your ideal customers. Your knowledge of them should drive your brand strategy, should drive your offer, should drive your marketing, sales, operations, customer research, your customer support, all of that stuff. The foundation should be, how well do I know my ideal customers? If you know them well, you have the foundation to build a skyscraper. If you know them, I just know the demographics and that they maybe struggle with this point. If that's all you know about them, you're maybe going to build a 2-bedroom ranch on that foundation. So it depends on, like, if you're trying to build a skyscraper, you better have a very solid foundation and very deep understanding of your ideal customers if you want to be successful. Nothing else in business, no brand strategy, no marketing strategy, sales strategy, no tactic is going to work if you don't know those ideal customers. Everything in business comes down to them. And if your business is struggling, like if you're not generating leads, if you're not closing, the number one thing I tell people is you need to do more customer research. Because if that lead magnet isn't working, if your email sequence isn't working, if like you get them on a discovery call and you're not closing them, you don't know them well enough to actually solve their problem. So get down into the weeds, understand your ideal clients. It will solve every business issue you have is solved by knowing your ideal customers. Every single one, which I think is maybe another sassy take. I don't know.
I don't know if it was it might have been sassy, but it was awesome. That was that's
Well, thank you.
that was incredible. Jason, this has been awesome. My last question for you is, can you just tell us where to find you so that people can get more sassy
Yeah.
takes or killer insights like these, wherever it is that you operate online?
Yeah, the biggest place would be LinkedIn. I post content Monday through Friday at 7 a.m. Central. All of my sassy takes and most of my content is very practical. Here's how to do it. Here's why to do it. I'm basically training you to think like a brand strategist in my content. So find me there, Jason Vana. I also have an email newsletter that goes out on Mondays that takes that LinkedIn content and goes even deeper. So if you're like, LinkedIn content is great, but I want Jason on steroids, that's my email newsletter, which you can find on our website, shift.agency. It's SHFT, no I, because I was trying to be cool. Started the company, not always the smartest move, but SHFT.agency. I've got a ton of free resources on there to help you build your brand and understand content creation. The email newsletters on there. And like even this podcast, once it's published, I will be embedding the video on my website. So I've got all the podcasts I've been on. If you want branding information, you go to shift.agency. Everything is there. Any advice I've given now, any resources I have is all there. And then connect with me on LinkedIn. I will accept your connection request and you can see all my beautiful content.
Amazing. Jason, thank you so much for being here today. This was absolutely incredible. You just shared like a wealth of knowledge on, really understanding your customer and how that flows, not just through marketing and brand, but through the entire business. So really appreciate you taking the time. This was incredible, and hopefully we can do it again someday.
Definitely. I had a blast.